awkwardness and anxiety tonight. Speaking of which, I want everybody, my brother Pierce is right here, I want everybody to turn and say hi, Pierce, and wave at him.
Hi, Pierce.
So I want you to think about things that make you anxious. Whether it be like tests, whether it be having a big performance or a big playoff game coming up, whether it's like asking someone out and you're like, I don't know what's going to go on. Think of things that make you anxious or that you don't really want to do and stuff. Throw out a few to me.
Going to a park at night.
Going to a park at night. Scary. Therapy. You shouldn't be scared of that. You need it. You need it. I'm telling you.
Asking someone out. Asking someone out.
Asking someone out. Scary. Super scary. Natalie, did you ask Steven out? No, Steven's like, definitely no. Has that happened to you?
Oh, you had to go get
I'm so
something else
sorry.
and she forgot something and then you forgot.
Young mom.
Well, we're thinking of these kind of anxieties, but let's take it a level deeper. Sometimes anxieties get to the point where we don't really feel like we can do anything about them. Sometimes they get to the point where we don't really understand what our options are. We don't really know what we can even do to get past them. Or think about, what do you do when you walk into a room and you see that person who's been spreading rumors and talking about you behind your back? What do you do when your boyfriend or your girlfriend, like, you know they're about to break up with you? How do you approach those situations? What do you do when you think you might have gotten your girlfriend pregnant? And you're like, where do I go next on this? Or what do you do when you know that your loved one is probably going to die and there's nothing that can be done? There's all these things that pop up in life, all these situations that we go through that we feel like we're trapped. Like there's nothing that can be done. If I'm distracted, it's because it's my first time seeing my baby niece in the back, and that's why. But there's all these things that keep us trapped that we don't know how to approach in life. And what we want to do is see, what does the Bible say? What can we do when we feel like there's nothing to be done? What can we do when we feel like we're absolutely trapped and there's nowhere we can go with this? So if you want to open up your Bibles to Psalm 57. We're going to be in Psalm 57, and let me go ahead and give you a little bit of the context of what's going on here. So this psalm's written by David, and he's a pretty important character in the Bible. He's like definitely top 3. And David has he's been promised that he's going to be the next king of Israel. Like it's been appointed, it's been confirmed. He knows from the prophets that he's going to be the next king of Israel. But the problem is there's a current king. And that current king doesn't really like the fact that it's not going to be like him, the king of Israel, for much longer, or one of his sons and stuff. So he does what any irrational person would do, and he decides he's going to kill David. It's kind of like if you were the senior and you're like the captain of the football team, and you're in charge, and you know this whole year's supposed to be about you, but there's also like this junior, and you know he's going to be football team captain next year. And you're like, I'm all state, but it doesn't matter that he's all American. Like, whatever. And everybody's like, no, maybe he should even be captain this year. And you start getting jealous and like wondering, like, why is there all the attention on him? It's my senior year. And so you do what any irrational person would do, and you kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Totally relatable. So like Saul's out of his mind, and he goes and he really is like trying to kill David, and David's on the run. He's on the run for like probably about 2 years at that point, and Saul has finally figured out where he is. Saul's kind of pinpointed his location, and David is in hiding. And he goes into a cave, and it's probably like one of the lowest moments of his life. He's in this cave. There's no cell reception. It's wet. It's damp. He probably has barely any light, and he can't get out. And so what does David do when he's trapped in this moment? Read in chapter 57, or Psalm 57, it says, "Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me. For in you my soul takes refuge. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge till the storms of destruction pass by. I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purposes for me. He will send from heaven and save me. He will put to shame him who tramples on me. God will send out his steadfast love and his faithfulness. So what we're going to try and do, we're going to try and answer the question, what do we do when we feel trapped? And I see three things that David does in this situation. And the first, and you're going to feel like I sound like a broken record, but he prays. It's really simple. He gets down and he asks God, would you come in to this situation?
Yeah, it's good.
When I'm at Bible college, I'm at Moody, there's this game that I like to play. It's called, are they praying or are they sleeping? Because everybody there is like praying at different points. You see like prayer meetings happen out, but especially like during finals week, you just never really know. And so here's how the game works. You walk into the library, you see someone there, and they're like heads kind of bowed down, and you're wondering, and they're in a stressed out week, and their sleep schedule's out everywhere, and you just look at them and you're like, are you praying or are you sleeping? And you can do it anyway. You can be out in the plaza. There'll be like a guy out with his friend, and he'll be like looking up to heaven. He'll be sitting like on a bench or something, you know, like, and his friend is like right over here beside him, and he's doing something like a Tebow pose over here, and you're like, are you praying or are you just sleeping? But what happens when we're in like these situations, we get so stressed out that we go like different ways, or we can't like figure out what to do. And so instead of praying, oftentimes, what do we get into? The opposite of prayer is it's worry. And we begin worrying, and we begin doing things that are self-destructive, that don't help us. So, you know what I do when I worry? I either like take a nap or I binge eat. Like something that just helps me like not think about this situation that's going on around me. I don't know what it is for you, but binge eating is like the thing for me. But what we do, and that's why in Philippians 4:6 it says, I should know my Philippians 4:6 guys. It says, don't worry about anything, but in prayer and supplication, which is like saying, but with prayer and with more prayer, go before God, make your request known to God.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you ever think that like God wants to hear your requests?
Yeah.
God like wants you to come. He wants to hear what you have to say. He wants to know what's on your heart. And what we do when we're in these situations where we don't really see any path forward is the last thing we often do, but it should be the first thing, is to invite God into the situation, say, God, what can you do here? Can you do it? David's crying, he's saying, be merciful to me, oh God, be merciful to me. And normally when we hear that in the Psalms, we're thinking that he's like asking for repentance, like I messed up, God, would you please forgive me? But no, he's like, God, I need you to do something here, or I'm going to die. It's that simple. And so the first thing that David does in this situation is he prays. The second thing that I see David doing is that he trusts God.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest things to do, or let me start with this. Who has trust issues in here? Who would admit to like definitely having some trust issues? Who like doesn't trust me enough to like raise their hand right now and let that out? I think trusting God is one of the hardest, and probably the hardest thing that he asks us to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely, through life, trusting God. He's asked me to do a lot of things that I think are hard, but trusting him when I don't see a way forward, trusting him when I don't see what's going on in life is the hardest. And what do you do in these situations? How do you trust him when you know like someone's going behind your back, spreading rumors about you? What we end up doing is we go and we decide, instead of trusting God, I'm going to take things into my own hand. I'm going to see whatever I can do to scrounge up, to figure things out. And so what we do when that person's spreading rumors of us, what do? We say, oh, I'm going to spread rumors about you. I'm going to get you back. I'm going to turn your friends against you. We start doing harmful things like that. What do we do when we know someone's going to break up with us? We become like the most amazing person for like a week. We become like, I love you so much. You're the greatest person. We're buying chocolates. We're buying flowers for them. We're doing whatever we can to salvage a relationship. Or some of you, when you know that someone's going to break up with you, you try and beat them to the punch. You're one of those. You're like, I'm going to break up with them before they can break up with me.
Yep.
Save yourself a hurt. I think trusting God is so hard. I have this example. I need 3 volunteers. I need one guy who weighs at least 150, 160. Preston. Okay, Preston, yeah, come up here. Preston, I want you to get on stage. And I need 2 girls. I need Aubrey and Zoe. Okay, and I want you to stay down here. You can stay down here. Okay. Aubrey and Zoe, I want you to get right here. And I want you to lock arms. One of you put your arms on stand across from each other. Like this.
Face each other.
Like this. Okay, and I want you to do this. Do you know what a trust ball is? Yeah. You don't want a trust ball?
They don't trust themselves.
Okay. I'll trust it down. All right, let me get 4 people who feel confident. Okay, you 2. Steven, Josh, and Mark. Let's go for it. Let's get one person. Yeah, there you go, Mark. Yeah. Okay, you want to do it? Okay, let's do it. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Oh! You gotta fall! You gotta fall!
And then they stop.
Okay, do it for real.
2, 1.
Trust fall.
Solid.
Good job. Give him a round of applause. Good job.
So I think some of the problem that we have in trusting in God is that we don't think He's big enough for our problem. We don't think He can actually catch us if we leave things up to Him.
Come on, it's good.
Or sometimes we just don't think He actually cares enough about our problems. We don't think He cares enough about our problems specifically. Maybe He cares enough about other people to help them, but He doesn't care enough about me.
It's good.
But what we realize when we trust God, and what David has realized from a life of being able to follow God and see God move in all these situations, is that God is so much bigger. That God is so much stronger. That God is so much more powerful than we give Him credit for being.
Yeah, it's good, Micah.
And that He cares about us so much more than we think He does. And that's what leads David to be able to say in verse 2, he says, I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills His purpose for me. See, David knew that God had a plan for his life. David knew what the promises of God on his life were, and he trusted it. And sometimes we struggle with that, but David, through a life of watching him, even when he was in this situation that he just didn't know what to do, he knew that he could trust in the Lord. So David prayed to God in this situation, and David trusted God. The third thing that I see David doing is that David worshiped. In the middle of all this, David worshiped.
It's good.
And I think prayer is something that we can understand. If your back's against the wall and you really have nothing else to do, that's even people who don't believe in God are going to start praying at that point. Right? But worship and trusting in God, worship is taking a step beyond that and saying, God, not only do I trust you in here, but I believe that you're good. And I believe that you want the best for me. And I believe that you're working things out. And even if I don't see it, I can praise you in this moment.
It's good, Micah.
But think about like some of the things that keep us from worshiping God. And here I have just a list of things that are the opposite of worship. Words that are opposite, and I got these words as offend, dishonor, disrespect, loathe, scorn, scorn's a good word, dislike, and hate. And I think some of us are here with God. I think some of us struggle to worship God because we're in that angry phase. I think some of us recognize that maybe we want to worship God, maybe we think there's something there, but the truth is we're angry ahead because we say, God, if you're so good, why does my life look like this? God, if you care for me so much, why is my situation the way it is? And truth be told, I've been there. I've been angry at God. I've been furious. And I think anybody who's walked with God for long or anybody who's tried to approach him can say, I've been angry at God. And I don't really have an easy answer for how you break that cycle, but I want to tell this story, and then I'll go ahead and wrap up. There's this guy who lived in the 1800s, right? I don't remember his name. I'll try to remember his name. It's hard to remember names. He lived around the 1800s. He lived in Chicago, and you can look this up. The story happened, or this thing happened in Chicago. They call it the Great Chicago Fire. And it burned down a huge portion of the city. And this guy, he was a real estate agent, or he had a lot of properties, and that's how he made a living. That's how he made his money. And it all burned down. And he couldn't take care of his family. Well, he had a pastor friend, and his pastor suggested, just go ahead and get away for a while. Go take your family, go on like vacation, and then come back to this when you're rested up. And so he agrees to it, and he goes ahead and he sends his family ahead of him, and he's going to meet up with them in a couple of days. And he gets his telegraph back from his wife, and it says something like, shipwrecked, only I survived. And his 4 daughters died in that shipwreck. And so now you're at this situation where not only is his livelihood gone, not only was his means of making an income and providing for his family was taken away, but also his family. And so sometime later, he goes and he actually gets on a boat and goes by the spot where his daughters drowned. And through all the confusion and all the anger and all the things that he could have said, what he decides to do instead is he writes a worship song. It's one that a lot of us have heard. It's called It Is Well. And it goes, when sorrows like sea billows blow, sorrows like sea billows blow. I gotta do the tune. Basically, the idea is, when life is hard, you've taught me to say that I can trust in you. You've taught me to say that you are enough for me. And so I don't know where you're at in that point of your relationship with God. If you feel trapped, or if you feel anger, or you don't understand like why your situations are the way that they are. But I can say with confidence that God's got you. I wrote it down this way, that there's not an easy answer for why life looks the way it does. But God is your only solution forward. He's the only thing that can pick up the pieces for you. He's the only thing that can help you take your life and take all the things that hurt, the things that are frustrating, the things that you can't understand, and make something of them and turn those pains into worship and into something that glorifies Him. That is beautiful. So I want to wrap it up. I got one big takeaway that I want you all to get. One thing, if you're a note writer, or if you want to take away that I want you to remember, is that what we see as undefeatable problems, God sees as opportunities to show His love and His faithfulness. Let's say that again. What we see as undefeatable problems, what we see as things that trap us, that keep us from being able to pursue the life we want, God sees those as opportunities to show His love and His faithfulness to us.